Hey everyone, welcome to the Be Bold, Make Waves podcast, a show bringing you inspiring stories of women who are growing and scaling their business. I'm your host, Laura Comark, a website and tech integration specialist who works with online business owners who love their work and not their website. Join me as we have incredible conversations about business, mindset, productivity, and of course, the website and tech behind the business. Let's go ahead and dive in to this week's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's show. For those of you who don't already know me, I'm Laura Comark, a website and tech automation specialist who works with women who love their work, but not their website. I am so excited to introduce you to my guest today, Cassandra LeRoy. Cassandra is a dashboard designer and data consultant who helps coaches, consultants, and course creators turn their metrics into momentum so they can ditch the overwhelm and embrace a sustainable growth system using data-backed decisions to scale to 6 and 7 figures. Cassandra, I am so excited to have you on the show today. I just love geeking out over all this stuff. Can you tell our listeners just a little bit more about kind of your background story?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I am so ready to geek out too. So my background is I grew up actually with a lot of entrepreneurs, but I didn't know what I wanted that to look like for me because you want to, be like your family growing up and seeing them running businesses, but no one as a little kid thinks, oh, I'm going to be a consultant when I grow up. So I never knew how that was going to look for me or like what business I would own. So I found my way into project management, large event planning for trade shows, conventions. And I always use the data. That was my best tool for clients. That's where we got the most clarity. We saw the most value. And then COVID happened. And live events stopped overnight, literally. And so I saw that as my moment. If I'm ever going to start a business, it's going to be now. And the funny thing is I thought I was going to do a complete 180. I thought I was going to do Facebook ad strategy and marketing and try all these new things. And as I started working with clients, they realized my strengths and I found myself again doing project management and again having conversations about the data. And so eventually I gave in and I said, you know what, if this is where I'm needed, if this is the value that the clients are really enjoying, let's dive in full force. And so now I am a dashboard designer and a data consultant.
Oh my gosh, I love that story. I felt it feels very similar to my story. My parents, growing up, they had their own business. They were entrepreneurs. They had like a brick and mortar business. And then I was a project lead when I was in corporate. And then I kept like, I want to be a web designer. And then I kept ending up in these project management roles when I was doing my own business. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm really good at that, but I really like building websites.
Yeah, it's such a full circle moment how you get drawn back in sometimes.
Absolutely. So can you explain to our audience a little bit, like what exactly is a dashboard?
Sure. So there's a fun statistic that says 65% of people are actually visual learners and 30% or more are auditory learners. So right there, you know that over 90% of the population actually needs to have some visual cue or they need to talk things through with someone in order to fully comprehend the situation and the story. And it's the same thing with data, with metrics. A lot of people know what they are, they track them, that's great, but they have trouble really understanding the story behind them. And that's what the dashboards that I design do. It really takes their goals, their vision, and puts it into a visual story that they can understand and make decisions really easily for their business.
Oh, that's so much. Cause I try to track so many things. And I know even me, like I'm horrible about always going and checking my Google Analytics and actually like finding out what the results are from all this data that I'm collecting. But actually being able to put that into like a cohesive story can feel it can be daunting.
It's a lot. It's overwhelming. Even for me, sometimes you have to stop and be like, okay, what am I trying to accomplish? What are my goals? And focus back in. And that's what I love about the numbers is when you really learn to read the story behind it, when you're a detective and you pull out those insights, it tells you so much about your business. It gives you a roadmap to how to grow your business and where your business needs attention. And so it is worth having the time to have a data system. And I think you kind of touched on it a little bit. A lot of people may have spreadsheets like you do. They may even have dashboards, but they don't have a data system. They don't have like the specific timing to go back in and review those insights to really get the full benefits.
Absolutely. I know, like, I will tell clients, like, I will set Google Analytics up for you all day long, but I'm not going to sit here and try to explain to you how to use it because I can barely figure out how to like pick my way around and fully understand what's happening in there because there's so much information. And
it's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot.
It's a lot. What? And you already have a lot on your plate, right? Mm-hmm. Like at the end of the long day, that's the last thing you want to do is like, oh, let me curl up, instead of a nice book and a glass of wine, let me dive into some Google Analytics. Like said no one ever.
That was me. That was totally me the other night. I was watching a presentation from the Simply Profitable Designer Summit that I had spoke at just a couple of weeks ago. And there was one on local SEO and Google Analytics and all these things. So I'm like, I had my cheese, I had my wine. I'm digging into my husband because he has a physical location business. And I was digging in, like looking at some of his things. I'm like, honey, you're posting on Instagram. I'm like, you've gotten one person from Instagram in like the last 6 months. Like you probably should be focusing your efforts somewhere else because that's not where people are coming to your website from. People are coming from Google searches. That's how they find him.
Laura, that's exactly it. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you said that example because so many people are in that same situation. And it's like driving a car blindfolded. Like you would never do that. It's dangerous. Why would you ever do that to your business? Yeah, that's such a great example because your husband is not alone. I've heard several people be in that same situation.
What are some of the important like matrices to have set up? Like I know we need Google Analytics. Like as business owners, what stuff do we need to be setting up on the back end to track?
So I think this is the not fun answer where I have to say, well, it depends because everyone's goals are different. And truly, I think your dashboard, the metrics that you're tracking need to be specific to you and your goals. You need to, like I said, the driving kind of metaphor, the first thing you do when you get in and use a GPS is you need to put in the correct destination, right? Or else you're not going to end up in the right place. You're going to have to be backtracking. It takes 3 times as long to get there. And so if you can get really specific on your vision and goals, then we can backtrack and find the right metrics to track for your business. And the good news about that is then you're not having to track everything. You're tracking the few key areas and the right things where you can focus your time and effort. And then there's not the struggle there. It shouldn't be so difficult. It can be easy when you're tracking the right metrics. So there are lots of metrics to track. Sales, marketing. The important thing is do not pay attention to vanity metrics. I don't care how many likes, how many comments. They're not paying your bills. You really need to focus on the leading metrics that help you look forward in your business. And so I actually have a tool available on my website that'll help you determine those leading metrics. I'm happy to talk with people to help dive into that. But that's the important thing is to really define your goals, and then you can work backwards to find the right metrics for your business that are leading metrics.
I'm going to go look at this tool you have on your website after our call. What would you say? Something that I find a lot, there's a conversation I've been having a lot lately with some of my other like colleagues and friends in the online space talking about the importance of validating offers and how clients can understand what it means to validate an offer and the importance of validating things before you start kind of like throwing a bunch of money behind something. Can we talk a little bit about the validation process and using the data to validate offers?
Yeah. I love the idea of validating because on the flip side, when you don't, and I've seen this happen to clients where they spend a lot of time and effort in products or services, And then we come in, we scrub the data, and we will find out they are spending 80% of their time on the products and services that make 10% of the profit. And it's kind of heartbreaking when you think of like all that hard time, effort, late nights, working on things at 2 a.m. only to create 10% of your profit. And so validating as you go is wonderful. There is a bit of a try, fail, adjust factor there. Sometimes you just have to test it. And so that's where it's really helpful to have someone who is a third party point of view like myself, who can go through that journey with you and have an outsider's perspective and say, hey, yes, let's move forward and try this, or say, no, according to the numbers, we really need to dial it back. We're looking to make sure that we're making the right decisions, but at no point do we want to put your business in jeopardy. And so someone like myself can come along in that journey and help you make sure that at no point you're put in jeopardy, at no point you're leaking revenue and profit trying to develop products and validate them along the way. So it's a little different for everyone. Like I said, every business is unique and different that way. And the try, fail, adjust, but you have to know your good, better, best scenarios when you do validation like that. So take some time to run the numbers. At what point do I really need to pull the plug because it jeopardizes my business? What are my good goals where I think it's great to move forward? We can keep adjusting things. And what is my best scenario? Everything is tracking. We are getting great responses from people. Let's move forward, full tilt, put more resources, more budget behind this. Know those benchmarks, which makes it really easy in the moment to make those judgment calls when you're in the emotions about it. When you're creating a new project, there's a lot of emotions involved. And so having those numbers, those benchmarks help you make a better decision in the moment.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Because we are so close and so we feel it when we create something that's our baby. We birth these ideas into the world and share it. And it can be so hard when we are so close to it to see things that an outsider can so often easily see.
Yeah. And I get that a lot where numbers are simple. Numbers are very honest. They aren't going to sugarcoat things. They're definitely going to reveal some things you may not like, but they can also be a permission slip. They can also be a really good things to encourage you to keep going. So I don't want to feel like, I have to check my numbers is always a bad thing. It can be the green light to something and validating and moving forward. So it's exciting. But yes, it is always good to balance the messy human emotions with maybe the data that helps you clear through the fog a little bit.
Do you find that a lot of your clients that you work with are kind of maybe have a fear of the numbers of looking at the data?
I do. So I kind of have two different tracks. Either someone is actually pretty good with the data, but they just don't have time. They are overwhelmed. They have lots of plates spinning. And then there's the other track where, yes, it is just something maybe from not being good at math class or, something happened along the way where they now have this fear, this inhibition where they think that they're not a numbers person. They think that they can't get a handle on them. But it's always really exciting to see the light bulb go off, especially when we make dashboards to see non-math people realize, oh my gosh, I can do this. This makes sense. And so it's kind of like an example of if I took the word stop off of a stop sign, but still showed you the sign, would you know what it means?
Yes.
Right? And it's because you have that visual.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you're not presenting the information in a way that just makes sense for your brain. So I do tend to work with a lot of creatives, a lot of neurodivergent CEOs and business owners, because they just need a different way to present the information. It's the same thing like checking the weather. So you could have a table full of numbers, or you can have a graphic that says a little sun with 80 degrees and a little moon with a cloud, and it's going to be cold that night, all because of the way it was visually represented. And I think that's a huge part people miss out on. And it really helps dial back their fear and give them confidence when they just have the right visualization tool for their data.
I love that so much. I think it's so important because we all learn and process in different ways. I know for me, I'm finding more and more that I'm just such a like verbal processor.
Ooh.
I'm not much of a journaler. I have a really hard time journaling things. I'm in a mastermind right now, and there's a prompt each week. And I will literally, I'll write it out in my head. I'll respond to it in my head, but I won't go and just type out the response. So I never get to it. But I'm like, man, if I could just like Voxer this answer or record a wing video, it's so much easier for me to process using just my words, which is probably why I also have the podcast is so much easier for me than like creating a blog post, because it's just, that's how I process things is by verbalizing it out.
I love that. So are you the type where you tend to do voice to text or leave yourself little voice notes?
Siri and I are not friends. We don't get along. We don't speak the same language. She's just, I don't know if I'm just a little too old school and I just can't figure her out, but I don't like her and I don't use her.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
I would love to use voice to text. My husband has started using it a lot more. It drives me nuts because I can't figure out like if I'm supposed to say period or comma or if she'll figure it out. She kind of bothers me because she'll get it wrong. And I'm like, I don't remember what that word should be because it's not a recording of it. So I've tried also using the Google talk to text or talk to type.
Okay.
But it doesn't always get my recording, like what I'm saying, right? So instead I'll just do a Loom video and either pull the transcript from there or upload it to Otter AI to pull the transcript for things so that I can pull the text from it that way because I'm struggling with the talk to type technology.
I love that. I discovered the voice record app on my iPhone, and now I have to like start putting them in folders. I have so many. It's just so convenient, like you, to talk it through and then allow yourself that time to process it back. I'm the same way. Yeah.
I do. I have a lot of Voxer chats with little masterminds I'm in, and that helps me so much. The one thing I'm horrible about, though, is going back and like starring the things I want to remember for later and trying to go through the thread is a little intense because it gets out of hand pretty quickly with all the back and forth that we do. But I definitely find like even just on our Monday check-in Vox that we do where it's like, okay, so what's on everyone's like goal list to accomplish this week? And that it's easier for me just to talk it out on the fly than to try to write it down. I mean, I will write it down later, but I'm definitely a verbal processor, I'm discovering. And then I'm also very visual where I need to like see things and touch it. So like my husband, I always say, has a technological black cloud that follows him around. And so he sometimes struggles with like stuff on the computer and he's like, well, just tell me what to do. I'm like, I can't tell you. I have to show you. I have to touch it and walk through because I don't always remember the words for where to click and what to do. I have to visually see it to walk through.
Yeah. Or it's almost like muscle memory. You get into that rhythm and you're like, no, this doesn't feel right. It wasn't over here. It was over here. Yeah.
No, it is muscle memory. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love that.
That's awesome.
So I think it's important to just touch on that though. But I mean, we all do learn in so many different ways. And it's so important that as we're doing our businesses and helping support clients that we find ways to connect with them and help them with all the different ways that they can process. I mean, I know I do like a lot of Loom videos for my clients.
Yeah. And that's perfect. So there's another stat that says people make over 35,000 decisions a day. Like, right? It's just phenomenal trying to think that number through on how many decisions you make a day. So like decision fatigue is real. It's totally real. And by the end of the day, like sometimes you just want to read like a storybook, like a kindergartner, like just show me the pictures. My brain can't process any more information. You don't have the energy, the time, like the bandwidth to handle that. And so being able to visualize something, if it can help your brain understand it, then don't fight your brain. You were made to work a specific way. Let's work with those strengths, not against them.
I love that. Yeah. And I love that you're creating a way to connect with your clients, meeting them where they're at and finding ways to make it easier for them. Oh, I love that so much. So how can we talk a little bit about how you got a little deeper into this whole idea of transitioning from project management to the data consulting?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, I was doing project management and then slowly started taking over some more operational things. And next thing you know, I'm kind of getting into online business manager territory. And because I had that trust with clients, I was able to notice certain trends. I'm picking up on certain behaviors that I would pick up before with trade shows. I was so used to making data back decisions beforehand in corporate where I didn't even second guess it. That's where I needed to look for clues, right? If something was going on, was checking the data. And so it was second nature to me to play detective and dig in and find the data and bring that to the table for the clients. So it was a really natural progression. I didn't realize how helpful it was outside of trade shows until you have those conversations with clients and you see that aha moment and you see that light bulb above their head go, oh, that's what's going on. Oh, I forgot we did it that way last time. That's why those numbers aren't the same this time. So seeing how quickly it changed their perspective, it removed the self-doubt. They left the meeting with their shoulders, back and their chin high, and they had more confidence. They knew what action to take. We knew how to have conversations with the team. It provided so much clarity. It was like my own light bulb going off. It's like, wow, I need to lean into this, meaning more of this in having conversations.
Oh, I love that so much. Would you say that there's any specific systems or programs that you recommend? I love talking all the tech things, so I'm very curious,
I
kind of
know.
what's some of your favorite systems and programs?
So I do have a few, but I will put this caveat. These are my favorite. It doesn't mean they're necessarily right for everyone. You can absolutely have an effective dashboard and just do it in Google Sheets, do it in Excel. If it's not broken, you don't have to fix it as long as it has the right tools and metrics for what you need to track. I, of course, am a bit of a DIYer, and so I do like playing with more bells and whistles sometimes. And so I really like a mix between Google Data Studio and Clipfolio. They both have enough capabilities where you can get pretty creative. You can add some other maybe artistic elements that make the dashboard a little more fun, a little more interactive, and really help you slice and dice the data a little bit better, get really granular on what you're looking to uncover when it comes to analytics. There is a learning curve. I will say that. I think it's so much fun. I've spent a lot of time with them, but it is a learning curve. Not everyone has the time to spend, 2 weeks, let alone a few months learning an in-depth program like that. But again, to have the right visualizations to grow your business and sustainably scale to 6 and 7 figures, you can do some really fun things in Clipfolio and Google Data Studio.
I wonder if Google Data Studio is what I'm using. I have a dashboard that I set up after a quick course that it was like a really nice short little snippet course that just walked me through how to set up a dashboard it's connected to, I think, analytics and Search Console.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I can find it anymore. I created it and then it kind of disappeared into the Google world.
Right. And now we're moving to G for analytics. So you may have to check up on that, make sure it's set up to the right analytics. Yeah. Our little PSA announcement for people. Make sure that they have their Google Analytics set up for July 1st.
Yeah, that's something I know I was offering a special last year to clients too, if they wanted some help in setting up GA4 and getting all that connected over, because that's important.
It's really important. Yeah.
And so just so our audience knows what's happening there is Universal Analytics is going away. And there's a new system that Google is putting out that is tracking and just sort of tracking things a little different. They are now, I believe, going to be pushing the connection, or not the connection, but the creation of it sounds like, but that's still not connecting it to your website. So there is still a manual piece that has to happen to make sure everything's updated properly.
Exactly. And so if you do have a dashboard like the one you probably have, you may have to reconnect it. But just like before with Google Universal, there's so much good data there. You set it up once and it brings in so much good data to dive into. So it's worth it.
Talking back about like the data, what would you say is like one of the biggest mistakes you see people making with their data?
There are a few. I think the biggest one is, like I mentioned before, they just don't have a data system. They think a data is a spreadsheet, they fill it in and they're done. Or maybe they have a dashboard, they look at it once when they need something, and then they haven't looked at it in 6 months. It's like collecting digital dust. And that's really not where you get the benefit out of it. It really needs to be a system that you do recurring, whether weekly or monthly. But it's those incremental changes. Like a dashboard is not going to, make you $100,000 overnight, right? We want to create a culture in your business that uses data-backed decisions. So over time, you see those little changes add up. You see that 1%, increase in revenue add up over time. And those changes over time can really transform a business, right? Oh gosh, I may get this wrong. What's the quote that they say? People always overestimate what they can do in a day, but underestimate what they can do in a year. Is that it? Something like that.
Right. It sounds right. I mean,
something like that, where I think having a data system is really that. It's playing the long game. And so if you're not in there consistently, if you're not making a habit of it, you're really not getting the results or the full benefits of even tracking it. So at that point, you're kind of creating your own headache. You're wasting your own time and resources to fill in this spreadsheet that you don't look at anyway. So yes, we have to start adjusting our mindset that it is a data system and that we need to develop a data culture in our business.
I love that. A data culture.
Yeah. And the exciting thing about a data culture is I work with a lot of business owners who they have small teams too. Yeah. So when it's a culture in your business, it's not just you, it's your whole team. And so now you have a team of people who know the metrics they're tracking, how their roles fit into the goal for your company, what everyone's trying to accomplish. And so you no longer have a VA who's maybe just a task taker. You have someone who is proactive. They're taking ownership of areas in your business. They themselves are making data-backed decisions and moving, your business forward and helping you grow. And that's really powerful when it's not just you alone, it's your whole team using data-backed decisions.
I love that. So if someone is like, okay, I am not tracking my things, and what do I need to be doing to just kind of like get myself started and get off to the right start? Yeah.
And it's okay. Everyone has to start somewhere. So step one is to okay, we're going to let go of the guilt. we're going to let that go and just take step one. And we're going to make sure that, like I said before, the step one is really like the goals and your vision. You have to have the right destination for your GPS. So make sure that you have very clear goals for your business, that your team knows the goal, what everyone's trying to achieve. And then starting from there, working backwards, like we said, to find your leading metrics. And then we're going to start tracking those. And just to be clear, what I mean by leading metrics versus lagging metrics, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but think of it this way. If you are trying to get more sales, you want to track sales, and that's great, but that's already happened. It's after the fact, right? You can't change it once it's already happened. That's like looking in your rearview mirror. If you do that, you're going to crash, right? If you look in your rearview mirror the whole time while you're driving, you're going to miss things. And so you need to track a metric that is a leading indicator. And so for this example, for sales, it would be something like sales calls. if you have more sales calls, you're going to get more sales. And so something as simple as that is making sure that you are tracking the leading metrics tied to your goal is a great start. So I would start there, maybe track 1 to 2 leading metrics for each of your goals, and you shouldn't have more than 3 or 4 goals. So that means that's no more than 10 things to track on a weekly and monthly basis. That's doable, right? Whether it's you or your team, if you are looking at less than 10 things and taking a few minutes each week to really dive in and look at the progress, look at those trends, you can accomplish so much without feeling overwhelmed.
Oh, I love that. And I love that example. So I would love to know if my goal was to grow my email list, what would be the like lead goal to be, the lead metric to be tracking for that?
Yeah. So for an email list, that's kind of the goal. What are the 3 key things that typically need to happen in your specific funnel, working backwards, in order to gain a new subscriber? And so typically I would walk clients through that exercise and have them kind of work backwards in your funnel. What are those 3 things that happen before someone lands on your email list?
They need to first land on the website. If we're going further back than that, they need to hear about the freebie, either in a Facebook group, on a podcast, or at a summit. So then working back further than that would be being more visible and speaking at more summits, getting on more podcasts, and like telling people about the thing. So posting about it on social and in Facebook groups.
Perfect. So what I would do at that point is we would kind of make a note of those things. So now we're looking at traffic numbers to your website. We are looking at crossover traffic from events, right? You may track those over, different UTM codes. So you may have that specific information coming in from Google Analytics and all your different traffic sources. And I know you do social media too. So you have people landing on your socials for traffic. And then we also have conversion rates, how each of those are converting people over to your website. Once they're on your website, are they filling out a form to get on your list?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So once they fill out that form, or they sign up for the lead magnet, we're going to have those numbers as well. And then the fun part comes in where we look at all the numbers and we see, okay, the bulk of the traffic is coming from here. Maybe it's LinkedIn and you didn't realize it was LinkedIn. So now we can focus on LinkedIn because that's your most powerful lead source. And let's put resources there. Let's track that number. Or we can look at your conversion rate. And now we can say, ooh, this is a great conversion rate, but we think we can do better. Let's tweak a little things on the website. Let's talk to Laura about this awesome website and have her make some changes. And then we can start trying and testing and improving your conversion rates. And so each step along the way, you're kind of building on top of each other, which ultimately adds up into big results for new email subscribers.
Oh, I love that. I love how you just worked that back in that example. That was fun. That made me think of something and it just left my brain. So we're going to go back and we're going to track like where the leads are coming from. Oh, I know. How long should I be tracking this for to kind of get some good data?
So to get some good data, it depends on your business. So some people just starting out, they're not going to have a lot of data, and I get that. But starting earlier is better than, not, the best day to plant a tree was yesterday. And if not, then the next best day is today. So the more data you have, the better decisions you can make. The longer you have, the better trends you're going to notice, the more insights you can pull. So starting to track now, starting to set your goals and track the right metrics for those goals is really going to be everyone's best option. I really start to see trends at like the 3 to 6 month mark. Okay. Usually. A lot of people tend to do at least biannual launches, or they have events or something usually happens. So at that point, we maybe have a launch or two, or maybe a couple speaking engagements, when we start to see a series of events and can take the average, not just to stand alone, because there's always outliers, right? I'm getting into super nerdy tech that I love, and people's eyes are probably glazing over. But when you have a few events that you can pull on, not just one, I think you have really good data to start pulling insights and tweaking and pulling the right levers in your business to see some growth.
Oh, I love that. I have a client that we recently set up kind of a new little sales funnel for her. So I'm excited. I keep telling her, I'm like, I just can't wait for we just need some time now and get some eyeballs on it to once the traffic comes and we can just start seeing how it's converting. I'm really excited to start digging into that more. I'm just I have to just sit on my hands for a while we just, give it time, because it takes time to gather that information. I just keep telling her, I'm just keep going out and talking about it, because the biggest thing you need right now is to drive traffic to the offer.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a marathon, not a sprint. So you really do have to be patient with this. And of course, a full year is even better, because then you capture your full sales cycle for your business. And then you start to see seasonal trends. Then you start to see annual trends. And so year over year, if you could have a couple years of data, that's really powerful, because then you're not relying on quote unquote standard industry trends. Someone on Instagram said, my open rate should be this. Now you know the right numbers for your business and what your business tends to perform at, which is much better information than someone's, quote unquote universal standard.
Yeah, industry standards. It's so hard. There's so many numbers out there that we're constantly throwing at us for all the things.
It's a lot. And they're constantly changing too, right? Technology changes. And so how you calculate things changes a little bit. And so if you know how your business historically performs, that's always going to be the best data to go by.
Oh, I love that. I think that's such good advice right there. It's just really knowing your historical data. So, because you need to know where you're falling. That was something I was talking with a colleague the other day about. I got up on one of my soapboxes. I get on those a lot in my Voxer chats. And I was saying to her, it's so hard, because so often it's I do it all the time too, comparing ourselves to others in the online space. Yeah. And then really, we have to compare ourselves to where we were a year ago, where we were 2 years ago, to really look at how far our businesses have come, because that's the important thing to look at, not looking at where we are in comparison to our peers.
Oh my gosh. I think every business owner just gave you a round of applause on that one. That is so hard. It's such a mental game as a business owner, and we all struggle with that. And so I think myself included here, we all need that reminder of the competition. It's not even a competition, but you have to give yourself a fair comparison, like you said, with your previous self, and stop the unfair comparisons with all of your peers. That's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Let's stop doing that.
Oh my gosh, this has been so much fun. I do have one final question that I ask everyone who comes on the show. And that is, what is one piece of advice you would give someone when they're first starting out that would help them be bolder, be louder, and make waves in their business?
Ooh, I love that question. For someone just starting out, I would say it is critical to find your community. It was a huge factor for me for accountability, for encouragement. There is just so much you don't know. And like we said, it is such a mental game starting out as a business owner that you really do need that support. And I was so fortunate to find not just one, a few great communities that they got me through those hard days. They were there to lift me up. And then on my best days, they were my megaphone. They reshared it and helped amplify my voice and be bold. And so I am really grateful to them. And I think for anyone starting out, finding that community that you can connect with is a huge game changer for your business.
I could not agree more. And I think that's such incredible advice. I know for me, when I started my online business, I was thrown into it because I got laid off from my super secure, quote unquote, corporate job when I was pregnant with my first child. And I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared to, I didn't really have much of a business. I had this little side hustle I was trying to figure out, that wasn't, it's just something I was doing a little bit on the side. There was definitely not traffic or any sort of data to track at that point. It was just, I was still figuring it all out. And that was in 2015. And it took me until about 2021 to actually like find my supportive community of like, these are my people. Or no, it was 2020, actually. Sorry. In 2020, when everything was going on, and I had found a program that I joined, and that was where I found my people. And then those are the people that now have continued to come with me on my journey that I'm on Voxer chat with and just help, pull the matches out of my hand when I'm ready to burn the business down and give me, lift me up when I'm feeling like in over my head and all the things, and help just support and guide me on this journey. So I think that's so important to find that community for sure.
Yeah, I didn't expect that to be such a hard transition from corporate, where I think we tend to marginalize our contributions a lot. We're told to be team players, and so we downplay it. And then all of a sudden you're in a business where you have to do the complete opposite. You're the only one talking about your business. And so you have to be bold and say it with a loud voice. And that can be a really hard habit to create coming out of corporate. That was a little surprising, but I agree. Finding that right community was huge.
That's much. Cassandra, can you tell our listeners where they can come find you, where they can get that download from you, and just all the amazingness that you are, they can come hang out with you online?
Of course. So I'm mainly on LinkedIn. They can find me at my profile, Cassandra LeRoy, and they can find me on my website, which is mulberryandmainevs.com. And that is where they will find that resource as well.
Wonderful. I will link all that up in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on today. This was such a fun conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I had the best time, Laura.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to check out the show notes at lauracomark.com/podcast. And if you're ready to turn your website into a marketing machine, get more sales, save time, and simplify the back end of your business, grab my free resource, Power Integrations for your website. Head on over to lauracomark.com/power. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe. And also, I'll just love you forever if you leave me a review. It helps get this podcast in front of other people that can help inspire. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next week. Bye now.